Okay. Okay, we'll now move on to roll call at this time. Go log on to Turning Point and say you're present. And if you are a proxy, the alternate way to do that is to send a direct message to Anna in chat. And also, it doesn't look like all of you guys have logged into Turning Point, so go do that as well. How's it looking, Anna?
26 to 27. I'm gonna close it in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, are we all good then? Okay, I think we're good. So now we're gonna move on to the approval of the agenda as it stands right now. We are going to have, we don't have any presentations as it stands, and we have one for election item, which is the election of counselors to the mental health roundtable.
Isabella, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Could I move to amend the agenda?
Yes, go. Yeah, and can I get a seconder for that?
I can second.
Yep, and then, yeah, again, I can't see anyone, so maybe unmute. Go ahead.
Can I add the presentation for Dr. Mike Silverman?
Yes. Are there any questions on adding this to the agenda? Again, I cannot see. How do I make it so I can see? Someone monitor that. If there are no questions, then we will move on to the.
There are a few.
There's 2 questions.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just have a. Oh, sorry.
You can go first.
Yes, Siddharth, go first.
I just have a procedural question because I see that we have space after the approval of minutes for presentations. So does that on a general basis include does it have to be something that's approved before the meeting?
Yeah, so anything that we're going to talk about in the meeting needs to be go on the agenda, which there's a call for agenda items at that time. And if you want to add something to the presentations after, like during the meeting, then you need to make a motion during the approval of the agenda.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, Sophia.
My question is just if there's going to be a chance to ask questions to Dr. Mike.
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
And then Peter, Councillor Kermack.
I'd like to add a motion to the agenda.
Yeah, wait till we're finished this and then you can go ahead with that.
Will do.
Are there any other further questions or points of debate on adding this agenda to the motion to the agenda, adding this presentation? And if it's all right with everyone, I believe this needs to happen after 7:30. So we're going to do things a step out of order, and this will take place after the election, but before exec reports, most likely, if that's all right with everyone. Are there any objections to adding this to the agenda? Please raise your Zoom hand. All right, seeing as there are no objections, this is added to the agenda, and Peter, our president, or Councillor Kermack, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to add a motion. Would you like me to read the motion out?
Yes, it's short, so go ahead. Yes.
Okay. All right. My motion is titled Establish the USC's position regarding continued mask mandates. Whereas Western has announced a continued imposition of medical grade mask wearing within instructional spaces starting in September of 2022. Whereas students have voiced their overwhelming opposition to this announcement, be it resolved that the USC officially adopt a position of opposition to Western's continued mask mandate policy.
All right, can I get a seconder?
I can second that.
Yep, and I think that was Sophia. And are there any questions on this? Seeing as there are no questions, are there anyone to speak in favor? Yeah, Peter, if you could, or in the general Slack, either.
I'll do so.
Both actually would be best. All right, at this time, are there any objections to adding this motion to the agenda? And it will take place after our last motion, which is the two govern finance motions. All right, seeing as there are no objections, this is added. And then just to round it off, I'll go through it one more time. So there's one for election item, which is the counselors to the mental health roundtable, followed by probably the presentation. And then we will move on to the approval of the exec reports, followed by the two Govern Finance Standing Committee motions, which is the amendment to the working group policy and amendments to faculty council grants policy, and then Councillor Kermack's new proposed motion. All right, are there any objections? Okay, seeing as there are no objections at this time, we'll now proceed with the agenda as it has been amended.
Are we ready for turning point?
Yes. Oh yes, hop onto that's what I meant to say. Hop onto turning point and approve the agenda, please. Yeah, and just one more time to confirm, if you're a proxy, make sure to keep a record of your votes.
Sorry, Bella, I missed it. Who moved and seconded the approval of the agenda? I have the amendments, but not the final agenda.
Oh, did I not get okay, can I get a mover to approve the agenda? I don't know if I did.
Councillor Mohan.
Any voting member. Sorry, did someone say they were?
Councillor Mohan.
Councillor Mohan, and a seconder?
Councillor Kermack.
Councillor Kermack, great. Melissa, did you catch that?
I did, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to close the polls in 3, 2, 1. And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay. I'm just going to share my screen once again. Are we looking at slides?
Both slides and people. Now just
Now are we
thoughts.
looking? Okay, great. And there are no presentations. There is no board of directors report today. And so we're going to move on to our first motion, which is the election of counselors to the mental health roundtable. President Gardner is the mover. Can I get a seconder for this one? I think I heard. Okay. I think we got that. President Gardner, you have the floor if you'd like to speak on this.
Thanks. I'll give my speaking rights to Lauren for this. Lauren Jarman.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. So today's motion, thank you, President Gardner and Councillor Mashroy for seconding it for me. So annually for the past couple of years, the University Affairs portfolio has hosted a mental health roundtable. So I'll read out just the motion right now. So whereas the University Affairs portfolio facilitates a mental health roundtable each year to consolidate knowledge about the current state of mental health resources on campus and to identify gaps in service that should be addressed by the Vice President University Affairs, whereas the membership for Mental Health Roundtable calls for 2 USC counselors to be elected to this body, be it resolved that council elect 2 counselors to the University Affairs portfolio's Mental Health Roundtable. There's also the terms of reference and some more information attached in the appendices if you'd like a little more information about it.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And we'll now, at the time, take nominations from the floor, and we already have one from Councillor Jones. Okay, I guess I'm going to do this. Councillor Dawn, is that a nomination for yourself?
No, I'd like to nominate somebody else if that's okay.
Yep.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Jenny Brown in this position.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, actually, Anna, do you want to do minutes now? All right, we're going to go back one step and approve the minutes from last meeting. I don't have that slide up, but if you could head on to Turning Point, and I believe it's in the appendices of the agenda, last minute's meetings, and vote on that. And then we'll revisit the mental health roundtable.
Again, reminder, if you're proxying, please DM me your votes plus the email at the end of today. Thank you. I'm going to close the polls at 7:20 with 3 short. All right. And the motion passes unanimously.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for that. Sorry for jumping around, everyone. Back to nominations. Are there any further nominations at this time besides Councillor Jung or Councillor Dorian Jones? All right, seeing as there are only 2 nominations, just really quick, are there any questions, or would anybody like to ask either just Councillor Jung any questions at this time? Okay, then I think we're going to use Turning Point as our vote of confidence or no confidence, as we only have 2 nominees and there are only 2 positions to be slotted, right? Correct? Yes, okay, great. So the vote in favor would be vote in confidence, and then the vote against would be your vote of no confidence for this. Head over to Turning Point.
All right, I'm gonna close the polls in 3, 2, 1. The motion passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Okay, great. So at this time, we would like to have the presentation, but I don't believe that the presenter is here yet. But ideally, we would like to see the presentation before the exec reports and everything else. So what I think I'm going to do is call an 8-minute recess at this time, and we'll re-adjourn at 7:30, unless you guys want to overrule that, which I believe you can with a 2/3 majority. But someone has to make a motion to do that. So, okay, see you guys at 7:30. Yes.
2 doses. 2 doses. Oh, sorry if the recording started halfway in, but 2 doses of vaccine for the newer strains, for BA4 and BA5 particularly, but also somewhat for BA1 and BA2. 2 doses of vaccine is not giving adequate protection against these newer strains of COVID. That includes protection against hospitalization and death, most importantly. People with 3 doses or 4 doses can still get COVID, but they tend to get it much more mild, and it tends to prevent, the vaccines tend to prevent hospitalization and death very effectively. And they're moderately effective at preventing illness. But to get the level of protection of preventing illness that we had with 2 doses against the older strains, we need 3 doses against the newer strains. And so the CDC no longer considers 2 doses as being fully vaccinated. One has to have had a booster to be considered fully vaccinated. And the protection, and people may say, well, I'm young, I don't have to worry so much about hospitalization or death, but long COVID remains a significant problem, even in the younger population. We do get some young people who get sick enough to be hospitalized. Thank goodness that's not common, but it happens. But long COVID is common. And that can really derail someone's academic career and can take people off out of their productivity for a long time. We don't know how long, of course, because COVID has only been with us for so long, but it seems like this is going on for a long time for many people, including for many young people. And so preventing COVID still is a very important thing, even for the young. And the other thing to realize is that we have many immunocompromised students and staff. And for many of these people, they're reliant on being around other people who are unlikely to have COVID, and that is to be vaccinated. So you may know that people who are immunocompromised do not respond well to the vaccine. Not that they get side effects, but that the vaccine doesn't help them as much. If your immune system is not functioning, then it does not respond to the vaccine. And so people who either have severe immune diseases like AIDS or leukemias, but even more commonly are people with other conditions that, particularly autoimmune conditions, that we treat with medications to suppress their immune system. So And those are very common, including in young population. There are many people with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, MS, people even with skin diseases like severe eczema, severe psoriasis, can require these immunocompromising medications. And they are more susceptible to COVID, and they are less likely to respond to the vaccine. In the extreme, some people with organ transplants like heart transplants and lung transplants, as well as people who have other conditions like heart conditions or severe asthma and other lung conditions that are at risk of severe outcomes should they get COVID. They are dependent on not on being in areas where they're less likely to get infected. And they are dependent on other people around them being vaccinated. And in order for equity, in order to have a university that's open to all, that people can come and access the services of the university, it is necessary that we make this institution as safe as we can for all. And that includes these many patients many people who are students and staff who have immune system problems. And it's just like having ramps for people who have mobility issues and in wheelchairs, etc. We have to make our classrooms safe for people whose immune system is weak, so that they can access the in-person education. And there's a strong feeling that in-person education is superior to online. And it's not just a strong feeling. I think there's quite a bit of evidence of that's in the best interest of the student. And we want accessibility for all. So in order to make it as accessible for all, then vaccination, including a booster, is necessary, because to get those kinds of protections like we had with 2 doses last year, to get that type of protection, we need 3 doses this year with the viruses that are circulating. And I can say that there are others may come to different conclusions, and people have brought up that some other universities have come to other conclusions, and that's true. But I'd also point out that other universities have come to the same conclusion as Western did, including very prominent universities like Harvard, Stanford, and Columbia have all come to the conclusion that they would mandate 3 doses of vaccine. Now, people may say, well, why, when did this, why and when do we know this? Well, the science has come out relatively slowly, but the science showing that 3 doses is better than 2, and it's significantly better and gives protection similar to 2 in the older strains and protects against hospitalization and death, is not based on just one study. It's based on studies that came out of Japan, out of Australia, out of the United States, two large ones out of England, Sweden. All studies that have looked at this have found that 3 doses is dramatically better than 2 doses, and that 2 doses does not give at all adequate protection against the new Omicron variants, including BA4 and BA5 that's circulating now. In terms of masks, and I know this is another issue that is of understandable concern, and so a question was raised: why were masks not required in the summer and they're going to be required in the fall? All respiratory viruses, and COVID is no exception, are expected to spread more effectively as the weather cools. As the weather cools, the humidity goes down and droplets can stay in the air longer. And when that happens, transmission of respiratory viruses is more effective. That's why we get flu outbreaks every winter. We do not get flu outbreaks in the summer. Respiratory syncytial virus, many other viruses, they circulate predominantly in the winter. It is assumed that COVID that most authorities expect that we will get a bigger wave coming in the fall. And so the summertime with a higher humidity, higher temperatures, people spending more time outdoors is less risky. And as the temperatures go down, more time indoors, especially as the school year starts and there's more people and larger classes. And when the classes are larger, there's more opportunity to spread. And that has more opportunities for outbreaks, which can cause severe harm to individual students and individual staff, and also can lead to closures of classes and harm to people, to the educational experience for all. So Western decided to institute a mask mandate at least for the first 5 weeks until Thanksgiving, and then to reassess. Maybe we won't get a bad wave. Maybe it will be not so, and they'll be able to remove the mask mandate. It's not a full year decision. It's made initially, at least while we look at what happens in the community around and see what's safe, to be ahead of the curve rather than reactive after we've already had to close things because some people have, God forbid, gotten sick or gotten very sick, or that we've had to close close classes. So I recognize that many people can come to different conclusions on looking at the data, or on with good conscience and coming to different conclusions. But the reality is the university had to make some kind of decision, and any decision they'd made would have been open to criticism from either one side or the other. There was no non-controversial decision that could have been made. The only question is what the controversy is going to be around, because if there had not been a decision to make mandatory vaccination, booster vaccination, then people would say, you're not protecting me, and it means I can't go to school because I'm immunocompromised. If there is no non-controversial decision, and the administrators had to make some type of decision. I think that the decision that was made is very justifiable, because it put the safety of the students, the safety of the staff, and equity as the first basis of by which all decisions would be made. Again, I respect differing opinions, and I really appreciate the opportunity to express this point of view. I'm happy to listen and answer any other points of view, and respond to any other points of view, and I do respect them. But the university did have to make some type of decision, and I do think that with some of the most premier universities in the world coming to the same conclusion, they are in good company. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you.
Are we open to questions at this time?
Yes, I'm happy to take questions.
Okay, great. If anybody has any questions, yep. Councillor Kermack, go ahead.
Thank you for coming to speak with us, Dr. Silverman. I just have one question for you here. So I'd like to quote Dr. Matt Stoss, who attended medical school, international medicine residency, and ICU fellowship at Western. He says, Western claims to be enacting the 3-dose mandate after a consultation with experts, which experts are those who do not seem to see the third dose, seem to know that third dose effectiveness is roughly between 0.6 and 6.5% in 4 months. Why would you kick someone out of the school because they didn't take a booster 8 months ago that is currently preventing approximately 0% protection against transmission? Pretension, malice, callous disregard for people who think differently from you. I'm struggling to understand. So is Dr. Stoss correct in his statement? Are third dose effectiveness really 0% after 4 months? As someone who received their third dose in January, I'm finding it difficult to understand this decision made by the university.
Right. Oh, I appreciate the question. I do disagree that the effectiveness of the third dose after 4 months is extremely low. I think all of the studies that I've mentioned do not show that evidence. To not show that to be the case. Some people have taken, mathematical models and said, well, the effectiveness may decrease with time. and therefore we extrapolate and say, well, then it's going to come to zero. I don't think that there is, and in fact, I know that the consensus amongst experts is that it does not fall to that level. And I feel that that opinion, I respect, many people have different opinions, but that is not the dominant view of most scientists who have looked at this. And that is not the view of the Center for Disease Control. That is not the view of the Ontario Ministry of Health. That is not the view and it's not, well, government versus not government. The evidence is very strong that 3 doses gives great protection. Now, I will say that there is a newer vaccine coming out. It's going to be coming out probably at some point in September. It may be even more effective, and people may choose to have that one because, as I understand, people have some time. I forget the exact date, but at least until October to get the 3rd dose. So people may choose to get that vaccine. That may be superior. But the vaccine we have now still gives excellent protection, and the opinion I'm giving is not like out there. These are studies done in the New England Journal of Medicine, the British Medical Journal, in first-rate world authority journals, have come to a very different conclusion than the one you quoted. And I'll leave it to whoever is chairing the meeting to decide on this next question.
I believe Councillor Morgan is next.
Sorry, Rashida Morgan. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure it was me. Thank you so much, Dr. Silva. My question is in regards to asking about if you had any, I guess, student consultation with making this decision and having an understanding on how they would feel with this decision. I only ask this just because there's already a distrust from students and even folks within the BIPOC community when it comes to decisions on health. And when it comes to building a relationship with students, I think a lot of the anger comes from, yes, you are protecting us with these vaccines, but at the same time, no one was consulted. And a lot of these feedbacks that we're getting from students are regarding not even being told or asked if they feel comfortable taking that vaccine. So I just wanted to know why this decision was made. Yes, it's maybe in the best interest for us. However, were there any talks with any student council members or students in general?
I appreciate that. I probably didn't make it as clear as, so I'm not a member of the administration of the university. I am a physician and a scientist, but not an administrator. So I was not part of the discussion. So I couldn't speak to that one way or the other. It's, I couldn't speak to who was consulted and who wasn't. I was consulted, and I'm under the impression that the university did extensive consultation, but I could not answer your question directly because I was not part of those, other than I was asked as a scientist and as an infectious disease specialist, what would be my recommendation, which I gave. But I was not part of all the discussions. My understanding was there were extensive discussions, and it was not a single opinion that was used to make the decision, that there were many opinions, but I could not answer your question directly. And it's a very, as to who was involved and who spoke, because I was not at most of the, I was only at the meeting where I was invited to give my opinion.
Sorry, before you continue, I just have another question, if that's okay, and then I can move on, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm leaving everything to the chair because she can see better.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you so much. My other question is in regards to looking at the Ontario provincial, I guess, mandates within being fully vaccinated. According to that, it is 2 doses. And I was just wondering how come there's just such a not a balance between either third doses and like according to what we already have, saying that 2 doses is seen as fully vaccinated?
Oh, that's a fair question. That's a very fair question. I think that would have to be addressed to them as to why they decided that. I can say that the CDC considers fully dosed to have at least 1 booster. I can say that many other premier universities in the world take the same position that we do. I can't speak for why other universities might have taken a different view. I do know that the decision was not taken lightly, and particularly because this whole issue of vaccination, etc., has been quite controversial as anyone watching media has seen. But the university took the position that its first responsibility was the safety of the students, the safety of the staff, and equity in access. And with those 3 things, they decided that mandating vaccination was the way to get those 3 goals best approved. Others, as I said, in good conscience, could come to different conclusions, and it's fair to ask, why did others come to a different conclusion? But I can't speak for them as to why they came to a different conclusion. But I can say that other premier universities came to the same conclusion that Western did.
Thank you. I believe we have next Councillor Cohen.
Hi. Thanks, Dr. Silverman, for coming to speak with us. I just wanted your opinion with regards to the masking. I don't know how aware you are of the guidelines Western gave in terms of when they should be worn, when they shouldn't be worn. It was a little ambiguous, but they also said that they're mandatory in educational spaces, so like during lectures and in classrooms, but that they wouldn't be required in libraries and places where people eat or where they frequent that aren't classrooms. So I just wanted to hear your take on what that benefit would be if we have to wear them in the class, but not other places on campus where we're interacting with the same people and just as large of a number of people. Because to me, it just doesn't really make sense. Like in my head, it would be an all or nothing approach, but I just wanted to hear your take on that.
Right. So thank you. So the issue with masking and making it universal, of course, you can't make masking universal in eating spaces because people can't eat with their mask on. And in the warm weather, people can eat outside, but cooler weather is coming, and so soon people are going to have to eat inside. So eating inside is not always an option. Now, the concept, as I understand it, that Western was considering was that in-person classes are a great benefit, and there's not a choice. People have no choice about whether they're going to go to classes. If they're going to enroll in the courses, they're going to have to go to classes. So there, masks were mandatory because people don't have an option other than not taking the course. In other places where there's an option to go or not to go, so people might go back to their room and eat if they lived on campus or off campus, or they might eat outside if it's still warm, or they might take other options. First of all, eating is not an option. If you got to eat inside, they have no choice. Masking can't be done there. But in other places like the library and sitting in a study room, people might have a choice that they could say, okay, I'm going to study. I have a serious immune system problem. I'm going to study in my own room, or I'm going to only study with my study mates by Zoom because I have an immune system problem. But they can't say, I'm not going to go to class, because that means they can't take the course. So places where someone for equity who has to be there, otherwise they can't take the course, that they should mandate masks so that they can attend. But other places that are a choice, that people could choose another way, then they would encourage it, but not make it mandatory, because people do have a choice beyond dropping the course. So that's my understanding of why those decisions were made. And the idea is to give as much choice as possible without taking away the opportunity for those who have medical problems to actually take a course.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Next, we have a question from the chat. It reads, "Thank you, Dr. Silverman, for sharing this evening. I have a popular question I've received from students. Is there a possibility that the vaccine booster mandate will be reassessed, similar to how masks will be reassessed in October?"
So always data that comes in would be taken into consideration. And if new data comes in that suggests otherwise, if there's new science, clearly things will have to change if there's new science. There's no way that now with the existing science, it suggests that people do need a booster, need a third dose. If a new study comes out suggesting something radically different and it's done properly, I mean, and I will caution, there are many, for a lay person, I'm an expert in infectious diseases. I'm an expert in, and I can read the medical literature after a lot of training. That doesn't mean I can read the engineering literature. That doesn't mean I can't read that I can read other literature. So it is very easy. You have to be careful who is interpreting things for you, because there is also a lot of pseudoscience out there. But the real science right now is very strong that a third dose makes a difference, makes a big difference. So if new science comes out suggesting something different, clearly the policy will have to be reevaluated. So that's absolute. And the university is not saying that no matter what new science says, we're going to stick to this because it's a philosophy, it's not science. No, this has to be based on what the science says. And if new science comes out, but the university had to make a call before the term starts. And on the basis of the science existing now, I do think it was the right call. But people of good conscience can come to different conclusions. There's no question. But the university has to make a call based on what it thinks is best for its students, staff, and for equity. And that's what they did. If the science changes, clearly the decision would have to change.
Thank you. Seeing as we exceeded our question period, but there are a few more questions left, I'm going to need a motion to extend the question period if we'd like to continue, and this can come from anyone.
I'll motion to extend.
Second it.
Okay, yes, I believe. Do you mind saying your names? I didn't catch anyone's names when they did that.
Ethan Gardner for motion.
Yep.
The Mrs. seconded.
Okay.
Council like the Mrs. seconded.
Okay, great. And are there any objections? Please lower your hands if you have questions, because now I'm asking for objections to extend the question period at this time. Okay, seeing as there are no objections, we can continue for an additional 10-ish minutes, and I believe we have Councillor Oslis up next.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Dr. Silverman. My question is that a lot of the feedback from students is surrounding the timing of the statement from the administration. You mentioned that the research comes slowly. Was this decision posted timely with the retrieval research? Do you think that, was this decision that we got the information and then the response was given out timely, quickly? A lot of people are upset that tuition was due. The administration made a decision and school starts in about a week and a half. Would you say that the research was there and the decision was made, quickly or timely, or do you have any comments on that?
Yeah. Again, this is with the caveat that I was asked an opinion and gave it, but I know the university was doing a great deal of consultation with various stakeholders, and also a lot of discussion and getting a lot of different opinions and trying to get opinions widely. I also know other universities, such as some of the ones I mentioned in the US, didn't issue their policy until, like, one I saw was August the 18th. So I didn't look at all. So most have been struggling with this over the summer because it's a very difficult call. And everyone knew that when they make the call one way or the other, they would be open to severe criticism either way, with people meaning well. But there is a diversity of opinion, and whatever opinion they took, it is clear that it would be open to second guessing and questions. And so people wanted to take as much time as they could to make as strong a decision as they could based on get as much information as they could to not take this lightly. I can't speak about the exact date and the time of tuition, et cetera, because again, I'm not part of the administration. And so I was not part of those discussions. But I do know is the decision was not taken lightly, and there was a great deal of time reviewing the literature, speaking to stakeholders, getting opinions from opinion leaders and from scientists like myself. But I know I'm not the only one. Many others were interviewed, many. And so that took a lot of time. And I know other universities that came out with similar opinions did it relatively late in the summer.
Thank you.
Councillor Maheshwari, go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Silverman. For the input has been of vital importance to council. My question is regarding, so in the guidelines that Western has provided, they said that the professors can choose whether or not they want to mask during classes in subsequent cases. So my question is, like, based on like what you shared with us around masks, I'm mystified as to how this is considered safe, particularly in smaller classes, of which there are many. And the constituency I represent is that of an affiliate college, in which the class sizes are generally small.
I'm very sorry to interrupt you, but I'm not hearing many of the words. Is there any way, because of our technical issues, I apologize, but technically I'm missing whole sentences, and I don't want to give short shrift to your question. Is there a way you could type it into the chat and someone could read it? Because I'm missing quite a bit of what you're saying, and I don't want to give an inadequate answer.
I have the question in the chat. I can go ahead and read that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so it's Western's guidelines allow for profs to choose whether they want a mask or not during classes and in instructional spaces. Based on what you have shared with us around masking, how can this be considered safe, particularly in smaller classes, of which there are many, particularly across the affiliates?
Now, my understanding for that is that professors can stand behind a screen that protects the students, and stand behind a screen, and then there is a barrier between them and all others in the room, and then they can take their mask off. And the reason why some may choose to do so is they feel that they can be better understood if people can see their facial expression while they're lecturing. Now, that's very different than a student taking their mask off, sitting beside people. And, you know, it is difficult to do adequate spacing because our rooms are only so large, and sitting there, sitting through an entire lecture. So the professors can stand far away at a great distance, unlike a student who's sitting right side by side with someone, and they can have a screen in front of them, a plexiglass screen that would protect the students. And that's the difference. They can't take off their mask and just walk in and start talking to people without a mask. They can stand at a great distance behind a plexiglass. And if they feel that they're going to be better understood or better able to show their emotion, et cetera, and keep students' interest that way, then that's a choice they can take. But when they leave behind that, when they go away from that plexiglass, they have to put their mask back on.
Thank you. And Councillor Turner, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. And I just wanted to say before I ask my question, thank you, Dr. Silverman, for providing a lot of accurate, scientifically based information that us students are often ignorant to and don't have easy access to. That is one quarrel that a lot of students are having right now, is a lack of transparency and hearing that information. So having that as a student and as a leader is really helpful. So obviously in my capacity, I've taken it upon myself to conduct a series of consultations with my constituents with the backlash on Western's COVID policy decision. After these consultations, the main consensus that I'm hearing among students is that they don't necessarily have a problem with the masking policy, but with the booster vaccine mandate. Many students vocalized to me that they would prefer going back to stricter masking and social distancing measures like those that were in place last year. This could include decreased capacities in indoor settings, social distancing in campus eateries and classrooms, and masking in workspaces like libraries and meeting rooms. Based on your expertise, do you think that this would endanger students' health and safety to reinstate strict masking and social distancing policies stricter than what is outlined in Western's recent COVID update, and then introduce the third booster dose mandate after the university reconvenes at Thanksgiving? I'll also put my question in the chat in a fulsome way, so if you need to refer back to it.
Thank you. No, thank you for your question. And thanks for your comments. I appreciate it. So the question is, like, would a mask and social distancing be enough?
Yes, exactly.
And unfortunately, I think they're helpful. I think they're helpful. And masking, I do think is helpful. Social distancing also is helpful if you can. The practicality of social distancing is very difficult in a classroom setting, because it generally means most classrooms were designed, and of course, it's not that they don't have the ability to build new buildings in this short period of time. They were designed for full capacity. And so with full social distancing, it generally would mean at least half the class would not be able to be there. Mm-hmm. So, and that's problematic. The other issue is that if for the protection of the individual and also for protection of others, the vaccine is extremely effective. So we did have social distancing and masking before we had a vaccine, with less infectious strains than we have now. So at the time of Alpha and at the time of wild type, we had social distancing and we had masking, and we had hospitals overflowing. So there's no question that the vaccine is the most effective intervention we have. And its vaccination has really dramatically what brought down the death rates and brought down the hospitalization rates. So it's not that I'm saying masking is not good. It is. It's helpful. But on its own, is it enough? Almost all authorities would say no, unfortunately. So, I do want to emphasize, this vaccine is extremely safe. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything out there that has zero risk. There's nothing that has zero risk, but the risk of someone getting severely ill or dying if they're not vaccinated is far greater than, by orders of magnitude, by orders of the thousands to hundreds of thousands of times, 100-fold greater likelihood that something bad is going to happen to a person for avoiding a vaccine than for taking the vaccine because they're worried about side effects. So, and that there is overwhelming consensus. So if and I understand that there are differing opinions on this, but the scientific consensus is overwhelming. Now, there's almost nothing in science where you can't find someone who's going to disagree, right? There's almost nothing, but the overwhelming, and we're talking about over 98% of scientists will agree that vaccination is one of the most important things you can do since 2019, since we've had it really 2020, like the most important thing you can do to protect yourself in the era of COVID. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And I do ask this simply to bring it back to my constituents so that I've consulted not only with USC bodies, but also with a healthcare professional. So I appreciate your response. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And this is going to be our last question without extension. Councillor Kermack, go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm back again. This will be the last question for me, I promise. So, as many students return to Western this fall, these mandates will take a significant toll on mental health on campus. Students just want a normal university experience, which Western will not provide. The community may see a rise in depression and anxiety in the coming months. What can be done to clean up the mess in regards to students at Western's mental health?
Okay, so it's a fair question. Again, I'm not a mental health expert, so I'm speaking as an infectious disease specialist. I can tell you that the mental health complications of COVID, of ending up in the hospital, or of developing long COVID, are devastating. So the mental health problems with of the illness can be overwhelming. After someone has been hospitalized, the mental health impact is devastating. And I can say that as someone who's seen literally, over 1,000 people hospitalized with COVID. The mental health impact is overwhelming. The mental health impact when someone dies, when a student or staff dies, is overwhelming. And what that does is overwhelming when that happens. Now, there's no question that that controversy is difficult for mental health, but there is no decision that could be made that would be without controversy. So not doing it, there would not mandating vaccination would open. There are many strong opinions of people who feel that they would not feel comfortable going to school if this wasn't done. Staff who would feel unsafe teaching, and so there would be many people who would feel unsafe. There is no way. I think the best thing we can do for mental health is to have open discussions about this, open understanding about why decisions might have been made and why, and ongoing consultation. I think that's very important, and open respect for divergence of opinions, realizing that people with good conscience can come to a different conclusion, and that doesn't mean they mean harm. So I think that's very important, and that we make sure that people understand that that people can come to different conclusions without it meaning that it has to come to a battle. That people can have that some decisions have to be made one way or the other. Decision has to be made, and that as long as we're supportive of each other and respectful of each other, hopefully those decisions won't lead to a sense of great stress and strain that it's us against them. That ideally we're all in this together, trying to make a safe, healthy, and equitable and accessible university experience, because the more people that feel safe and can come, the better the experience is for everyone. And I think that it's very important that we discuss things with that in mind, and rather than we've got to make other people change their mind focus, rather we openly listen and openly openly accept the diversity of opinion. And in that way, it will be a much less stressful environment. And then hopefully we won't have to deal with the stress of dealing with illness and death. And that stress is overwhelming. But I very much appreciate your question.
All right, thank you. I am going to stand with the thing I said before, that was going to be our last question without extension, unless anyone would like to make a motion for extension at this time. And it can be for less than 10 minutes. You can make a motion, you can extend for 5 minutes.
Can I motion for just 5 minutes?
Yep, can I get a seconder?
I'll second.
All right, and are there any, please lower your hand. Are there any objections at this time for the extension of 5 minutes? All right, seeing as there are no objections, the extension stands, and go ahead with your question.
Hello, doctor. Thank you so much for everything you've answered so far. I'd just like to build upon a question someone else mentioned earlier about the comparisons of masking in lecture versus outside of lecture. Last fall, we were not allowed to eat indoors with each other or be unmasked in the library. 2 things we can now do. Alongside, we had to be masked in lecture. You mentioned that the reason for no masking while eating is that it will get cold in the fall. However, last year, early in the fall, that wasn't considered, and many students were told to go outside in the cold to eat nevertheless, since the risk of disease was set to be too high. Since this year, the policy has become that we can sit along with each other unmasked. Meanwhile, we have to be masked in lecture. Does that mean that you see the risk of disease is planned to decrease compared to last year? And if so, what justifies the masking during lecture then?
So again, thank you for that question. So the university is in a difficult position. They are trying to make this as unonerous as possible, but focus on the idea of equity and safety. There are some people who will choose not to eat with others or will choose to eat only outdoors because of their own health risks. Particularly in the fall, that's an option, you know, when it's still somewhat warm. Some people can, you know, but because of that, it was felt that mandating, you know, the masking outside of lectures was not was not necessary at this time. So there was some taking, you know, relaxing of that with the idea that they could do other things. But going to classes is not a choice. If someone's enrolled in university, going to classes is not a choice. And so a decision was made to mandate that. I emphasize, there is no choice. There's no decision that could be made that couldn't be second guessed and suggested another way. And your point is completely valid. Like, why not say that it's got to be that way everywhere? However, if that decision was made to make it that way everywhere, we would definitely be open to the criticism that can't those people eat outside who feel that way? And your mandate. And so this is one of those things where you could argue both ways, and you could argue for fairness both ways. I do think that it is justifiable to say that in the classrooms, which is someplace people don't have a choice but to go, that masks have to be worn. But in other areas, it can be more of a choice because people have a choice to go there or not. That decision may not have been made last year, but then last year also we were earlier and we knew less than we know now. And also last year, basically the information was less, and we're hoping to refine things every year, and hopefully every year we get better and do a better job than what we did the year before. But your point is well taken. That other alternative would be defensible. The argument, the policy you're recommending would be defensible. But I'm also certain that had we brought in that policy, many would criticize it for the reasons that I said. You know, well, that's not really about equity because they can eat outside, so they're not going to have to miss their whole education. So the policy you're suggesting would be acceptable. The university tried on that issue to take a bit of a middle road. But almost any of these things could be questioned, and a good argument could be made the other direction. But the university has to make a decision one way or the other. And we have to, it takes a lot of guts, quite honestly, to be in that position to make some of these calls, knowing you're likely going to get a lot of criticism, whichever direction you go. It doesn't take any bravery, and it's not leadership, to say when it's clear everybody agrees on one thing and say, let's do what everybody agrees with. It's when half the people feel one way and half feel the other way, and you make a decision. That's what leadership is supposed to be. And hopefully you make the best call with your best conscience, and after talking to as many people as you can to get as many different viewpoints. But to make a decision when you know everyone's going to agree with you, that doesn't take a lot of leadership.
Thank you, Dr. Silverman. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. With that, I think I speak for everyone and say that we greatly appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us and answer all our questions. It was very informative and very helpful. If everyone wants to give a little like Zoom emoji. All right.
Thank you very much for having me, and thank you for the very thoughtful questions. I very much appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Okay, I think with that we can proceed with our agenda, which we have up next is the first reading of the exec reports. Do you guys want me to share my screen, or would you rather do that?
I think you can share your screen.
Yep, okay, let me try to do that really quick. All right, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Could you scroll down a little bit?
Yes.
We actually have a slide deck, Bella. Sorry, I didn't know that whether you had it or not, but I can share that right now.
Yeah, I don't have that, so you go for that.
If you can let me share, I will do it.
Yep, I will do that. Oh, I cannot.
Sorry, Melissa,
either.
You have to.
Yeah. And can I get a secondary for this? Sorry.
Did you just ask if I can? Oh yeah, it's because it's in the shared drive that Bella doesn't have access to.
No, that's
so
okay.
But yes, I will give you co-host.
Perfect.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Secondary, really quick.
Oh.
Anyone?
Counselor Mohan, I can second.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, Ethan.
All right, thank you. So for completed, highlights. Okay, for completed, we finished the roadmap as we ran by council at our last meeting. I think the comms team should be putting that out shortly, if not already. Next is the next is the Spoke Patio refurbishment. If you've been able to go to campus or see some of the stories, Spoke Patio has undergone some renovations, new chairs, new couches, and new floorboard as well, coming out. And then completed also is the Purple Care Trust chair and vice chair appointment. We elected Ethan Bisworm as chair, or appointed Ethan Bisworm as chair, and the vice chair is, let me make sure I get his name right, Richard Feng, vice chair. And then for ongoing, we have September programming, things like Goose Patio, Beer Fest, and Purple Fest. Goose Patio is programming on the renovated patio. Beer Fest is bringing some local and non-local breweries to campus to, I guess, have tastings. And Purple Fest is a performance in the Mustang Lounge. And then we have USC Day. USC Day, also please sign up for a slot if you have the time. We'd love to have as many of you out there as possible. Usually we set up on Concrete Beach, and it's just a great day for students to better understand what USC, the resources and programs we have to offer, and for you all to meet and connect with students on campus. We then have homecoming planning. So right now, the USC is responsible for the, or working with alumni relations for the pancake breakfast. So if you want to wake up somewhat early on HOCO, come onto campus. I'll be there with pancakes. If not, enjoy. And then also working with London Police to make sure that they have proper protocol in place for potential unsanctioned street gatherings, and make sure that they're respectful of students at the same time. And then ongoing as well is orientation week. We're finishing up basically finished the programming, and we're going through the last week of the LST soft training. And then on Sunday, we begin training for all softs. So a lot more students are going to be returning to campus on this Sunday. And then talent booking, yeah, that's about finished as well. And then upcoming, we wrote this before the COVID update, so not too much to touch on here because Mike did a pretty good job. If you go to Appendix B, I think underneath the section, yes, if you go to the appendix, that's where you can sign up for the doodle poll for USC Day. Thank you, Ethan Bisworm. Yes, I think that's all for me. I will pass it on to Lauren Jarman.
Hi, everybody. Just a few quick updates from me. I'm gonna do my highlights for the month first, just quickly share a couple really fun things that happened this month. I met some other internal advocacy executives at the Student Union Development Summit, which was really interesting. Just getting to chat about kind of shared goals and really focusing on that internal advocacy piece. Menstrual equity pop-up, we got roped in and invited to a menstrual equity pop-up while we were at SUDS, which is so crazy. It was a lot of fun. And we got to learn so much from different leaders in the menstrual equity movement, which was just such a wonderful opportunity. And I'm looking for Free the Dot collaboration opportunities with Canadian companies. A lot of folks have been reaching out to us given, you know, the publicity of the Free the Dot movement at the end of last year. So that's really exciting. In terms of kind of my items going forward. So for completed, my Free the Dot consultations with different university decision makers, including a meeting with the provost happened. So we're hoping by Reading Week to be collaborating with Western Libraries, Western Rec Center, as well as Ivy, and then going into the new year, hoping to have those bathroom installations done. It's just taking a little bit longer as we make sure we get a company that really aligns with our values. Ongoing policy paper planning. So I've got listed here what's up for review and which policy papers are new. I know Jess and I are going to be reaching out soon for consultations regarding student financial aid in particular, because that's a really big one for us. I've been working, sorry, I see Jess in the chat. I've been working on student socialization as well as academic transition with the vice provost students and vice provost academic. So, you know, really figuring out as we're coming back into the school year and as folks are bringing a lot of different experiences, especially when it comes to taking examinations, making friends, kind of these pieces that we might need a little more support with this year. So we're working on that. Collecting soft training feedback. So we already have feedback from Hura, Brescia, and Kings because they completed their training a little bit ago. And then once main campus softs as well as resident softs have finished their training, we're going to be looking for feedback to kind of improve training for next year and going forward. And I'm also still reviewing the EDI office's anti-racism training. I've had a couple folks reach out, but if you're still interested in reviewing it, please let me know because there's tons of space to share feedback. Upcoming mental health roundtable, really exciting. Thank you to both Councillor Jung and Councillor Jones for nominating themselves. Self-reported absences is still on the docket, so a lot of you will probably have some more information about that really soon. If you have any specific questions, please reach out. This is like my bread and butter right now. And we'll be looking to a student senator's by-election since there's one student senator spot we need to fill, but again, I'll give you more details on that as it comes around. And I'll pass it off to Jess.
Hey everyone, sorry my connection's not great right now, so I won't be able to turn my camera on, but I'll start with some of my highlights. First, we've completed some policy paper training at USA, which I'm very excited about because I have more direction when it comes to writing policy papers. And another exciting part was meeting my UCREW peers at the Student Union Development Summit, which I'll talk about in a moment. If you do not know already, UCREW is our federal lobby group, so we're coming from all over Canada and we don't usually get to meet each other, so seeing each other all together was super exciting for me. But moving on to things that I've completed. Earlier this summer, we attended Pride Parade and I had the chance to meet and speak with MPP Kernahan and MP Matheson, who are from the London area, so that was exciting. Once again, USA policy paper processes are in the works. And the Student Union Development Summit, if you didn't see, we also posted on the Western USC Instagram story a little bit of a takeover. Basically, it was a conference where a lot of student unions from around Canada met up together, did educational workshops, learn from different speakers, and all that sort of stuff. So we've got ongoing stuff now. We're planning for Federal and Provincial Lobby Week, which will take place in November. So there's lots from there to come. Working on provincial and federal budget submissions. And like Lauren mentioned, we're doing consultations with students at large and USC counselors soon. Once again, we're going to be looking for consultations for the USC SFA paper. And I'm also going to be looking for consultations for the two USA papers that I'll be working on this year. One is student entrepreneurship, employment, and employability. And the second one is teaching assessment. So lots of space for consultation and participation there, and I'll be reaching out very soon. Upcoming, we're doing USA Delegate Elections. So if you want to represent the USC at USA General Assembly in October, look out for those elections in September at the first September council meeting, and applications will drop at the end of August. I'm also going to be doing USA campus visits all around September. So that'll be really exciting. And finally, we're doing municipal election get out the vote campaigns soon. And election day is October 24th and advanced voting is October 7th to 14th. So municipal elections, these timelines are for both your hometown and London. So please keep an eye out on that so you can vote in both of your municipalities. that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good night. I'm just going to get right into it. So completed LST soft teams arrive for 2-week training. We've got a lot of softs here. Super duper exciting. Hired portfolio members. Ongoing is my AVP onboarding and then orientation week planning. So that is programming, training, and supports for students in soft post orientation week. Upcoming orientation week. Woohoo! Yay! And then also September programming, like Ethan Gardner mentioned beforehand. Some of my highlights also SEDS because I was able to meet other students who are in my roles across campus, across Canada, and able to kind of chat some programs that I've been planning to develop and things that they've developed. So we're just geeking out about cool things that we all know. And then also my other highlight is a week swag. Take it as you want it, baby. Just lots of swag. Thank you so much. That's it.
Okay, yay, it's my part. I guess I'll also start with highlights. So yeah, it's really liked meeting some of the folks from McMaster. Really learned how a lot of their governance there is quite similar to ours. A lot of others confuse me or were just weird folks. I don't know. And another thing that was fun while we were in Vancouver was Kimia humored me in going to check out like this one canyon near Capilano Bridge, and I kind of got us lost. And then we went on like a really precarious path down like the cliffside. And we almost both, well, actually I did fall, but Kimia almost fell several times, but she actually managed to stay on her feet. So bravo, Kimia. So what have I been doing this past month? So there's the faculty council bank account policies and the whole recurring credit card thing. You might remember me having brought this up at last council meeting. Basically just push through that policy and everything. It's not approved yet because we need to do that at this meeting, but like hopefully, you know, soon to be approved and everything, but it's what I've been working on. Same deal for the working group policy slash template. That's a similar deal to the faculty bank account policy thing. I also got my wisdom teeth removed. I have them right here if anyone wants to see them. Just going to take like general thumbs up, thumbs down from the audience here. If anyone wants to see my wisdom teeth.
No.
Okay. Well, also got appointed the Purple Care Trust Chair, which Ethan had mentioned. What I've got going on now is general Clubs Week setup and everything, and the communication behind it. So we sent out the email to clubs presidents, clubs leaders recently for the sign up for the different clubs groups, and we're sort of figuring out where some clubs are asking us whether they can bring a banner or order a new one, and they can like purchase swag to give out to attendees and everything. I'm getting a lot of mixed results as to whether or not people want to see these teeth. Anyways, Clubs Fast Track is another thing that I'm working on. I've sort of introduced it to one of my AVPs as well as both coordinators I have who are on the clubs portfolio. We're going to have a deeper look into that whole thing once September starts. Student governance drive, like the whole help docs thing I want to put together, that's coming along slowly. And I also recently got my full paperback printed out policy manual for the USC, which is over 500 pages. I wish I was in office so I could show the binder, but it's the fat stack of papers, and I'm like 1/3 through it. I don't know. It's a lot of policy. And what's coming up is still Mustang Express and history of the USC. A lot of things sort of more pressing on my agenda with like club stuff going on as well as a week. So those have sort of fallen to the back burner, but hopefully I'll get to them eventually. And that's it for me.
No teeth. No teeth. Thanks, Ethan. Hi, everyone. Great to see you, hear from you. I'm really excited to see you all in person shortly. My highlights for the month are the Goose. Super happy that is now a thing we get to do all year. If you haven't seen it, follow us at Western USC on all social media platforms. Also walking the Pride Parade was pretty fun. Very, very cool thing to be a part of. And we've been having a really cool time, fun time, brainstorming some fun student engagement ideas for O Week. So both for upper years and for first years. So stay tuned. Completed for me, hired my AVPs and coordinators. I have 7, super excited. Media, Lauren did an SRA interview, article TBD, and there's been several this week related to COVID as well. I want to give a big shout out to Sydney and Peter for coming to join us at the Pride Parade. Goose, as I mentioned, and I did comms training for LSTs. So they are all on board with what their media should look like for a week and beyond. Ongoing, still doing a lot of student advocacy for the unsanctioned street parties and what are students looking for and what's going to resonate with them. Our student engagement committee is working on a lot of really cool behind the scenes things that you'll see coming up in the next few months. A week, as everyone mentioned, is it's coming. So we have a lot of really cool things going on. My second plug of my update is to please download the USC Now app. If you previously had an O Week app in the last 3 years, this has now been rebranded as USC Now. Don't do it immediately because we still have to upload users, but you'll see promo and we would appreciate your support there. It's going to be for first years and softs during O Week, but also meant for students to use all year long so you can know everything that's happening in the USC. And if you've got any feedback, please send it along. You'll also be part of the council. There's a little council feature. You'll see. Let me know what you think. And I'm working with Jess on municipal election get out the vote campaigns. Upcoming, more on the back burner until we get closer, is website re-navigation, international student orientation, which Ethan Bisworm is now leading because he is an international student himself. I plan to meet with VP Comms from all faculty councils once we get there. So let your VP Comms know that I'll be reaching out to them. And then we're working on a social campaign for Purple Care, and that's your health plan in case you didn't know. And that is all she wrote.
Okay, thank you so much. And at this time, we will be taking questions if anybody has any. Okay. We sure? Okay, seeing as there are no questions, we can now move on to the next motion. Okay, yeah, which we have the first, the amendment of the working group policy. Our mover is President Gardner. Can I get a seconder for this one?
Councillor Mohan.
Okay, great. And President Gardner, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'll pass my speaking rights to Ethan Bisworm.
Yes. Hello. It is me again, talking about the very thing I introduced in the exec report. Can I share my screen, or could someone like pull up the actual like policy itself? I can just talk about it.
Does anyone with screen sharing privileges have that up, or can someone give?
Oh, I just got it.
Ethan a co-host.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, let me just pull this up now. Okay. Here we go. All right. So, sorry about the links not being fully accessible when this was initially uploaded. We've been having some issues with wanting to make our drive very organized and using like a shared drive, but we can't even change permissions on it. It's stupid, but hopefully we'll have that fixed proper for next time. But anyways, so this motion to change the policy is really about recognizing that working groups in the past with the USC have had issue with knowing what it is they should do and also like aligning with some of the executives' efforts, because what a lot of working groups in the past ran into is they would elect their members, have the whole team ready to go, and then they either wouldn't know what it is that they should be doing with their time in their meeting, and also sometimes the work that they would do would overlap with what the execs were already doing. So then it was just kind of like effort for nothing. So the whole background and rationale and like the context behind everything is all here. I'm going to dive right into the actual policy itself. So like let's link to the bottom. So the policy itself, not too many changes were made. Some small like changes to allow working groups to get up and running faster. Really like this clause number 6 here under 1.2 is a mandate in terms of reference for the working group shall be created in the spirit of this template. It's more requiring those 2 items as well as offering up that template, which is linked here, which is really just like a mock version of the mental health roundtable terms of reference. And it's really robust in outlining what the purpose of the group is, history, mandates, membership, so on and so forth, even like individual responsibilities of each of the working group's members, which is good because it's always in the past been issues where working groups don't know who is the one should be taking responsibility for note taking or research or consulting and so on and so forth. So really it's just the addition of that clause and the inclusion of that template, but really it's just some additional small tweaks that allow working groups to report back to council more, and overall just should help working groups in understanding where it is they should go from their inception. Yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
It does not look like it. Okay. So with that, if I can get you to stop share really quick. All right, and then we're going to move on to the second of the kind. President Gardner will be the mover. Can I get a seconder, please?
Councillor Cohen.
Great. And President Gardner, you have the floor.
Thank you. I will pass my speaking rights to Ethan Bisworm.
Yes, back again, round 2. Okay, so this is the one. This is the one I'm a bit more excited about personally. So what I was dealing with over the summer a fair bit within my position was a lot of questions and concerns from different faculty council leaders, especially with the high turnover rate each council has of moving from one president to another or VP finance to another, is the issue of recurring payments and whether or not that was an option they could have, if they could have a credit card issued to them that sort of pulls directly from their bank account that we hold. Long and the short of it is we can't give each individual faculty council that much financial freedom with the accounts that we issue to them. If they have a separate account, they can do whatever they want with that. But the one that we hold, we have to have some rules and restrictions. And then imagine my surprise when I look through our policy manual and find that we didn't really outline those rules and restrictions. So really what this boils down to is the recognition that the old constituent council grants policy was the closest that we ever got to defining that relationship with different faculty councils. I imagine they also used to say constituent councils, but I'm going to use faculty council because that seems to be the more common term among students. In any case, it seems that these accounts that we hold for the different faculty councils first originated in a grants system that was created in tandem with the USC. However, since that system has long since evolved past just the issuance of grants and much more to the management of accounts, funds, and so on and so forth, I've since revisited the policy and renamed it the Faculty Council Account Policy to specifically deal with those accounts, and gone through a number of changes. The changes I've all marked in red on this specific marked up document. If you want to look at it pure without all the red and everything, another version is on the actual motion document, whatever. Anyways, changed up the purpose to be a bit more concise and to actually specify like what faculty councils are under the definition of bylaw 1, and like also making sure that it references to professional school councils. Then the clarifying the administration of it and who has signing authority, that it's, oh, that should be highlighted red. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyways, the signing authorities are the president of said council, VP finance, and then a third, which is typically VP events. would be whoever the faculty council chooses to assign it to, however. Indicates as well that the annual allocation is set in the USC's budget each year, and if there's ever any issue with it, faculty council leaders can then approach the USC during the budgeting process to have that change. Another small change is changing the requirement of reporting from faculty councils, as well as the issuance of that money to November 15th, simply as that's how we can best distribute that money. Basically, it comes down to we distribute an amount of money based on enrollment, and we can't get those official enrollment numbers until later in the year. So change to November 15th was just to reflect that, because otherwise we just would be late. There's no way we could hit October 15th. Also just want to highlight again, affiliate council grants is covered in a different policy, not here. Outlining how and why the USC is holding these accounts, and then the entirety of Section 3, which is all new, which is just outlining exactly what it is the USC is providing the different faculty councils. So the issuance of requests for payments to be reimbursed for things, transfer funds, specifically mentioning a business account because we don't want any money going to people's personal bank accounts. It has to be something that like the council holds as a collective, not any particular person. We don't want any money laundering. Issuing of checks for honoraria or grants, because a lot of faculty councils like doing that. General ledger, and then the whole credit card thing, which is where this all started, which is that we are issuing one credit card, and all the different faculty councils will use that same credit card and can submit a recurring payment to the USC through a recurring payment form. Another thing that I drafted up. People who have used our request for payment forms will find this quite similar. But basically, if you would like to register a recurring payment, say a website charge, a Canva subscription, a whatever else subscription that your council owns, you can just submit this form to add a charge, date it, include what the charge is. If it's in US dollars, please convert it to Canadian. What your council is, what's their account number, so on and so forth. We do need the username and password so that our people in IT can log in and register that payment information for you, because unfortunately we cannot give you that payment information. That is under lock and key for us. So yeah, those are the big changes. Something that has existed here even before I changed the name is the requirement of reporting from faculty councils to the USC on their spending and everything. This has been in place. However, I don't believe it has been enforced to any extent because I can't find these budgets from past years. I've also changed the deadline for them from October to November simply to reflect that same issuance change of date. But basically, I just would like to remind faculty council leaders that when budgeting for the year, in order to have access to the money that we issue you, we do expect that budgets are submitted to our office, specifically me, indicating what your expected revenues and expenditures are for the year. And that would be like an initial update November 1st, a later update December 15th, and then a final one in April 15th. Of course, April 15th, 2023. And that about covers it for the changes to this policy. Oh, and one small thing before I get this question, the review date is set to 1 year from now. That was a special request from our finance office, just because they want to make sure the credit card thing goes without any issue. And if there is any issue, they'd like to tweak it. So we will be revisiting this in a year, but hopefully there's no issue and we can just approve it same as it was before. Any questions?
Yep, Councillor Mohan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ethan, for putting this together. My question is around the allocation, and it says that it's set in the annual budgeting process. Could you elaborate on, is that the USC's annual budgeting process? And if so, like where could we find current and previous allocations that have been given on this grant?
I believe it's the allocation per student that we do. No, wait. Yes, yeah, allocation per student. And that's also set in each student's they're called different names, but it's basically I know for science students it's called the science donation fee. For music, it's a similar name and everything. And then when we are budgeting, in the section of our budget that outlines student fees, that's where the amount of money that goes to each faculty council should be outlined.
So I guess I'll follow up on that, because at least I don't see our 2021-2022 budget. So yeah, I'm just trying to like understand where that info is.
Okay. I'm not sure where it is you're looking right now, but I could get back to you with that information more specifically. I don't have that information super on hand because this was more something that was in the old policy and I just merged it with its subclause, so that was in existence already. But perhaps something to review before next meeting, before we meet again next week.
Cool, thank you.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm just curious on the piece on VP of events or equivalent, just because my council currently doesn't have a VP of finance nor a VP of events. So I'm just curious what may constitute equivalent for that second signature for the signing authorities.
Interesting. I did not realize that your council works so differently, but really what it's just meant to hone in on is just president, that being like whoever is the leader of the council itself. VP finance really just needs to be whoever is managing budget and the money. And then VP events or equivalent is just to say someone else who is an executive or elected like leader of the council. So they don't need to handle programming or anything. It's more just equivalent in terms of leadership position.
Thank you.
Any more questions? All right.
I think that's it. Okay, excellent. And with that, we are going to move on to our last motion, which was the new motion. We have Councillor Kermack as the mover. Can I get a seconder for this, please? Could be anyone. Anyone with voting rights would like to?
Councillor Cohen.
Okay. And with that, Councillor Kermack, you have the floor.
Thank you, Speaker. So I have a speech here. So on Monday, August 22nd, Western announced that starting September 1st, all individuals returning to campus will be required to wear medical grade masks for indoor instructional spaces. Following this announcement, students began to voice their concerns in an overwhelming fashion. The day of the announcement, an Instagram page titled "Enough is Enough" was created. It was designed to advocate for students who felt like the university did not have their best interests at heart. Within one day, the page reached over 3,000 followers and is continuing to gain traction. Students made it clear that they opposed this announcement, so much that it prompted the USC and affiliate student councils to begin to collect their own feedback via surveys. It's clear that there was once a time when masks on campus were necessary, but that time has now passed, according to our students. As Western makes this controversial decision, the university is now gaining national traction from both politicians and news organizations for all the wrong reasons. It's now time to take a stand. Like many counselors present, I've had numerous constituents reach out to me to voice their concerns. One of my constituents voiced his concerns saying, "It's ridiculously stupid. I've been working the entire summer in a retail store without a mask, and I see hundreds of people every day and I haven't caught COVID. It's time to move on from this. Why is Western moving backwards? I have my third dose. It's just the masks that are annoying. Another voiced her concerns to me saying, please, I don't even own masks anymore. I'm not anti-mask, but we should have a choice now at 3 years in and living all with no mask mandate in Ontario. A countless number of students also voiced their concerns to their faculty counselors. It is now time that we act in the interest of our constituents. I'd like to remind all voting members that as counselors, we have a duty to represent the interests of our constituents without letting personal partisans get in the way. With the passing of this motion, the Western student base will formally be in opposition to the announcement with legislative backing. If this motion fails, the USC will have demonstrated we are not committed to the interests of our constituents, allowing Western administration to continue to develop that policy that students deem harmful without opposition. I ask that you support this motion, not for you or for me, but for the people we proudly represent. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now take questions at this time, and reminder that debate and amendments happen next meeting. Councillor Daunt, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for this. I just speaking on like the line about representing like the view of our constituents. What about the people in our constituencies who feel the opposite? And if we were to kind of make a statement that's goes in one way, how can we show that the constituents that are feeling differently are well supported as well?
Right. So of course there's going to be opposition to anything of something like this, and I understand your concerns as well. I know that there is some students that may feel that this policy was appropriate. I just feel that as the issue continues to develop, we're seeing more and more support for the side of against the Western administration. I understand that as a USC, we should be siding with the majority, while also recognizing that there is some cases where immunocompromised students may benefit from the administration's decisions. I'm open to amendments to this motion if you feel so fit.
Thanks.
President Gardner.
Hey, Peter. Just a piece of clarification. Is it only the mask piece of the policy that you're motioning to, I guess, reject?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad you brought that up because I've had a lot of people ask me this question. The answer is it is only focusing on masks because that is the part that students feel most strongly about from my perspective. I remember Councillor Turner mentioned that her constituents mentioned that they felt most strongly about the vaccine part of the announcement. But what from I've seen, I can see that masks are the issue that students feel most passionately about from what I've heard from my constituents, and again, open up for amendments.
Councillor Seraphine.
Hi, just a question with regards to like the actions you want to take. USC recently just released a survey asking students how they feel. Would you be interested in reviewing the student feedback prior to making a plan towards any further actions?
Towards any further actions, I would be happy to review the results that we've got from the survey, if possible. I can, but from what I've seen, there's strong enough support for this legislation to go through this policy that the USC can put through to help get the ball rolling on something like this. Students who have submitted this survey have sent their concerns to me as well, copy and paste exactly what they said in the feedback, and that's what I made this policy around.
All right, Councillor Baluku is next.
All right. Hi, everyone. So first of all, thank you, Peter, for bringing this conversation up because I do think it is such a valuable conversation to have at this time. But I just had a question regarding, are we considering the state of Ontario's public health system right now? Because our hospitals are crashing. So are we incorporating this at all in the consideration, since we have a lot of nursing students at Western who we have to consider as well, who are working within these hospitals? And if we do have an influx in COVID cases, yeah, I'm just wondering if that's being considered at all.
Right, that is absolutely being considered, along with the decisions that the government is currently taking, what Western has done throughout the summer and what the Ontario government will continue to do, assuming so, throughout fall and winter will be to maintain its current regulations. I do recognize that nursing students may feel a particular way about this decision, but the majority of students have voiced their concerns, and I must follow what my constituents have to say.
Councillor Dar.
Hi, I just had a couple questions regarding some of the statements that you made. You quoted a concern that stated masking should be a choice, and I just wanted to ask how you would reconcile that with the lack of choice that would give immunocompromised or high-risk students in gaining their education in a safe environment.
Well, we recognize that immunocompromised students are a reality on campus. We do recognize that, but we do recognize also the majority of students are in favor of returning more to a more normal sense as we continue to advance our as a society and as a university. This is something that we must work towards. And you mentioned immunocompromised individuals. I also must add that an immunocompromised student did voice their concerns, stating that maybe they were not allowed to get vaccinated, and as per their immunocompromised status. And this motion is not related to that, but it is saying that there is some immunocompromised people that may benefit from this legislation as well. Oh man.
I had another question just regarding your use of the majority. I know that you use the number of followers on the Enough is Enough Instagram page and saying majority of Western shares these concerns. Do you have any other, I guess, sources for those numbers, considering that's only roughly 10% of the student population?
Yes, I understand this. The thing is, we haven't heard a much opposition from the other side. There has not been a great number. It hasn't been very vocal, is what I'm trying to get at. So this is what I'm basing my my concerns off of. There hasn't been much opposition. There haven't been many people who agree with the Western administration on a policy such as this one that they proposed, the Western administration. So that's what I'm basing my motion off of, is the great vocal, you know what I'm trying to say?
So
I can't
the
find
vocal minority?
Not minority, the vocal majority in this case.
Well, I wanted to know where you're getting or why you're using the term majority, given that the numbers are only roughly 10% of the student population, even if there hasn't been vocal opposition or support for the administration. I just wanted to know where you were using your term or getting your terminology from.
I will be getting, there will be more sources available as we progress in time, that students' concerns have been addressed, such as with the USC's survey. You may find, I am looking forward to seeing that in the future, and recognizing greater student concerns, and I'm certain that many of those will be in favor of this motion that I'm proposing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Cohen's up next, and I would just ask to limit crosstalk given the amount of questions that we have.
I don't know if now is the time or place to address it. I just had some concerns regarding the overall announcement, like including the vaccines and the masks. I don't know if it would potentially be added as an amendment or whatnot. I'm not necessarily challenging what the administration has decided in terms of needing the booster or asking that students wear masks in instructional spaces. But there are students that do have exemptions, as Peter mentioned, that their doctors actually told them that they shouldn't get the booster, shouldn't get the vaccine. So how are we going to make that process less strenuous on them to like get that documentation into the school and get that exemption accepted? I think that's like a big concern for people that actually shouldn't be like forced to get the vaccine in this case. If we're talking about equity, like Dr. Silverman was, there is that issue as well, because there are always going to be exceptions. Like we've all been saying, no one's ever going to be happy, you're never going to please everyone, but like there has to be things in place to help with that too. So I don't know if like now is the time to say that or what, or how we go about that, but I just wanted to bring that up.
Would that go to you, Madam Speaker?
Was there a question in there? If so, then yes. If no, then no.
Yeah, sorry, I rambled a little. I guess my question is like, do we add that issue in as an amendment, or like do we address that next week? Like, or is that something that we discuss now? Because it's not really part of the current motion.
We'll save that for next week. We'll save that for next week then.
Okay.
Because we'll also have a second question period next week for this if there are more questions.
Thank you so much.
So that does mark, we are well over our 10 minutes. Can I get a motion if anybody would like an extra?
I'd like to move that.
All right. Councillor Turner, motions for 10 minutes. Can I get a seconder?
Councillor Oslis.
Okay, great. And then can I get everyone hands down, and then any objections, please keep your hand raised. All right, seeing as there are no objections, we will continue the question period, and I believe I have Councillor Oslis next.
I wanted to add two things as comments and then make an amendment to the motion. Continuing on what Councillor Baluku said, because we do not have any counselors from Schulich Medical School, I would also like to add that their voices can't be present today. So that's kind of an addition to what Councillor Baluku said about nursing students. We don't have a voice representing the medical students right now. So I would like to add that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but.
Can you guys not hear me? Oh, can you?
Now
you can? Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Unfortunately, only questions at this point. Amendments would be for the debate period.
Okay, sounds good. I will add a question then. My question for my second point is to kind of continue on what Councillor Dart said. Councillor Kermack, are you aware, this is something I was just made aware of, but are you aware that there are now like other forms of social media, people showing support for the masks and for the mandates? I was just made aware of a TikTok that has 22,000 views and lots of comments that are supportive, and along with that, lots of likes and responses. So I wanted to ask if you have been made aware of that, because like Liam said, like Councillor Dart said, I don't want to say that the majority is that loudest group. Have you been made aware of that?
Thank you for the question. Yes, I have been aware. I have been made aware of TikToks. I actually don't have a TikTok account, so I'm just hearing this all secondhand. But that being said, I have been made aware of this. It's just not what my constituents are telling me. I haven't heard any of this from my constituents in particular.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Bella. I have two questions. One is mainly a clarification question following up on Councillor Dart's question about you mentioning that the majority of students oppose Western's COVID policy. And I was just wondering if you actually had any statistical information that specified or proved that there was a majority. I'm just not sure that that question was answered fulsomely. And I just wanted to clarify if you have proof that there's a majority, or if you're basing this on things like the Students for Agency Instagram page, as well as your consultations with the social science community.
Okay, I like to be clear, because I feel like you're probably right. I wasn't clear enough. I am basing, there's no formal statistic out there, so I'm basing it entirely off of the Instagram account, Twitter account that they also have. I'm also basing it off of my own consultations with students that have voiced their concerns to me, and some of my own personal polling with my few amount of followers. So
thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew what majority meant in your perspective.
And thank you for that. Thank you.
No worries. The second question I have for you is that you mentioned that a particular immunocompromised student vocalized that they were unable to receive the booster dose of the vaccine. Since your motion is pertaining strictly to masking policies, don't you think that maintaining the masking policy as set out by Western would be an appropriate safeguard to maintain their health and safety, since that they, legally or medically cannot receive the vaccine as a student at Western?
I understand that, and that's a fair concern. I think my answer to this question would be I'm open to amendments, because it is a tough issue, and I'm more than happy to have your support in this motion in your contribution.
Thank you for your answers.
Councillor Morgan is next.
Hi, sorry. I kind of have a question kind of similar to the previous one in regards into the justification of majority. I was wondering if you have a set number to consider majority when making this decision, and I guess moving forward to making this motion for, yeah.
Set number I do not have. I'm just basing this off of what I've heard from my constituents, what I've heard from the Western community.
Seeing that, do you think it's a good idea to maybe wait on the survey for actual stats?
The reason why this was brought up today is so that we can I recognize that there's not a lot of time left before this takes place, or before our next council meeting, say in September, when we're near the end. We need to get something going sooner rather than later for our constituents. So that's why. But I do understand. I mean, if I did have a statistic, if I knew that a statistic was coming in where I didn't have that time pressure, absolutely.
Sorry, what is your timeline for this?
Timeline would be, well, we need to get things going sooner rather than later, because of the concerns of our students, saying that this motion is going to begin in September 1st. So this is the last council meeting before then, so we can get something going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Mashwari is next.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is with regards to, I guess, the timeline, considering that Western's decision was made kind of on its own and is going to be enforced regardless of should this motion pass. And considering that, there is a lot of feedback that is still yet to be received from, multiple kind of, different constituencies. For example, the conversations that I've had, I am Huron's counselor, but the conversations I'm also present on the Arts and Humanities Council, and the conversation that I've had there is very much around more focused on the vaccination side of it. So I guess I'm inquiring as to if it would not be wiser to focus on long-term steps that would involve holding the administration accountable and asking for transparency, rather than being reactive and making a statement that in I guess the big picture is not going to achieve much.
You're right that this will not achieve much because it is just the first step. It's a baby step in the process. What this motion does is it recognizes the USC's official stance on the issue. So what this is going to be doing is going to be symbolizing that the Western student base does not support the motion. The decision that the Western administration made. I recognize that you guys on the Arts and Humanities Student Council may have heard something heard something different from your constituents, and I fully respect that. I must represent my constituents just as you must represent yours, and I'm also welcome to any amendments in that area. Did I fully answer your question? I think I might have missed a spot.
No, thank you. But just based on your answer, I am requiring a clarification.
Okay.
Yeah. So the opposition that you're proposing right now, is it specifically just for the policy, or is there a distinction being made between the policy itself and the administration? Because I'm just mentioning that because that's something that I've heard a lot, that it's not the policy itself that people have an issue with, but rather the lack of transparency from the administration.
So my motion is about the policy itself. I
Okay,
recognize that. Okay, all right. Yeah.
Okay, and we have next Councillor Mohan.
Thank you. So I think we're going to learn a lot until when we actually vote on this. I think we all have a lot of consulting to do.
Mhm.
I just wanted to caution against using social media as a proxy for student opinion. Whether it be TikTok or Instagram accounts, I can tell you there is probably a fair amount of engagement that is not coming from our students. And at that, there's going to be a large difference in the way students engage and how galvanized they are around this issue, depending on whether they support or are against both mandates. So my question is, though, even at the end of this, and we conduct surveys and we have opinions from students and we find out what the majority is that really the way we should be making public health policies? And can we really find a majority and then say that's what should happen when there are perhaps students with, like we heard from Dr. Silverman earlier today, different needs, especially when we're looking at the need of wanting to feel normal in the classroom, not wearing a mask, versus the need to be safe. So I guess my question is, can we really be using a majority to make a sound decision on this for what's best for students?
Well, I recognize also that you mentioned that not everyone that follows on the social media account is from Western. I also recognize that a lot of students use Instagram and Snapchat, which is why I didn't include the fact that they this account also has a Twitter account. I didn't mention it because I know that a lot of people on there are not from Western. Not a lot of students use Twitter nowadays, or at least a greater minority. So in that sense, I'd like to ask, in what ways are students engaging in this issue and they're not using social media? I'd like to hear, because I'm learning myself as well.
Chair, do I respond to that, or?
I'm gonna say we should keep it pushing.
No, okay, all right, I understand.
I'll shoot you a message, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
And there will again be a debate period next meeting. President Gardner.
Oh.
Actually, okay, go ahead if you would like to respond, Councillor Mohan.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think there are a good amount of students who are ambivalent or perhaps neutral on the issue, or even perhaps they're supportive of the policy, but not so much so that they're willing to put out a statement or put down a comment. And I do think that represents a good chunk of students, but that's why most are like importance on surveys and, you know what I mean, like direct consultation with students, where they don't really feel the pressures of having to substantiate what they're saying to everyone on Twitter or everyone on Instagram. So we are going to learn more about that the next week.
Right, and thank you for that. And I mean, if I'm totally fine, if you guys go to your constituents and you learn more about their perspectives, and you make your decision based off of that. That's why I'm so happy that we have this week to decide. Where you see you guys, so everyone. Sorry, I don't want to say you guys. So councilors can speak with their constituents and decide what they really want. If councilors come to the conclusion that this isn't what the students want, they don't want this motion to pass, then so be it. We're here for our constituents, right? I'm bringing this motion forward because of what I've heard, and I respect you based off of your decision as well, based off your constituents whom we represent.
Okay, now President Gardner.
Thanks, Bella. First, Peter, thank you for bringing forward this motion. It definitely takes, I'm sure it took some time as well as a lot of courage to collect that data. So I appreciate that. As well as I hope that you take this question period more of us trying to clarify and less of us any sort of personal attacks, which everyone's been super respectful. So thank you, everyone, as well. Anyways, do you, in the consultations you've done, see any of the reasoning that people are against this mandate because of a lack of communication or understanding from the message from Western? This could be something like them not understanding that is just for lecture spaces, such as classrooms or labs, or even is it the timing that maybe they disagree with more than the actual mandates itself?
I know that there have been some confusion from students in this sense as well, and I have heard some things from my constituents which I read over, and I'm like, that's not really what. This is the minority of people who I've spoken to. It's not really what Western's preventing you from doing. Like I had one person mention that they just want to be able to eat a meal in Weldon. Well, you can do that as per Western's masking standard, because you can eat, and you don't need to wear a mask in the libraries. So there is some people who are out there, and they're very hot button, like as soon as the announcement comes out, then something like they demand action in a sense that is not very well thought out. But the majority of, but I don't want to keep saying that. But many students have been having this having an issue with Western administration for a long time. I know we've all found difficulties with them at some point with their announcements. I know how angry students were last year when us first years couldn't return to residence. But there is a great many students who are thoughtful in their decision making and what they want as a student base, and I feel like it's worth listening to them.
Okay, these will be the last two questions of this period. Councillor Chauhan, you have the floor.
Okay, so my question was more so about how I also have constituents or people who have come to me talking about how they dislike the statement that Western put out about wearing masks and everything like that. And I understand that there are a lot of people talking about this, or at least from what I've seen. Again, could be completely wrong. But from what you put out as the motion, are you aware that from what you're saying, if we oppose what Western has put out, we will be openly saying that we are forsaking, or at least ignoring, the people who are immunocompromised, or people who are, like from what Dr. Silverman said, need these mandates in order for their safety Are you aware that, like, if we openly say we oppose this policy, then we're ignoring this group of people who really need this in place from the science that has been given?
I think I've answered a question like this already regarding the immunocompromised. but we must recognize that students are immunocompromised. Some students are immunocompromised, and it's a challenge, and it's very difficult, and that's why I am open to any amendments that counselors are welcome to propose. And if you want to DM me, Agam, feel free to.
Okay, our last question from Counselor Turner.
Thank you, Peter, for entertaining all of these questions. I know it can be a lot. I myself and other counselors have mentioned that the Arts and Humanities community didn't receive any backlash masking wise, and a lot of our students actually want stricter masking policies. But regardless of that, could you provide some more reasons students provided to you for thinking that masking at the university is not necessary or could be harmful for them? I remember you mentioning in your earlier statement that one student said that they thought wearing a mask was like quote unquote stupid, and that they didn't contrive COVID as a result of not masking in their workplace. But I was wondering if any students provided reasons why masking is actually harmful or unnecessary besides that particular reason that you mentioned earlier.
Well, thank you again for the question. And yes, I'm drinking a lot of water because I have a really dry mouth now from all this talking. But yes, I have heard some concerns. Mostly are around mental health concerns. Students are afraid that as this progresses, we're going to find ourselves at university less. There's less face-to-face interaction. It's not normal. It's not how humans were meant to be, really. We recognize that as throughout the pandemic, masks were necessary, but we feel that we're at the point where it's more of a personal choice, or it should be one of such. I'd also like to say I got one comment from a previous counselor who's not serving anymore, who said 99% vaccination rate, but no, let's continue to cover our faces and live in fear. So that's just one counselor who said that, but that's just another example of feedback I've gotten.
Bella, do I have an opportunity to provide a follow-up question, or are we running out of time? If not, I can just hold off time.
If you think it'll be a quick question, we are kind of out of time.
I'll hold off, so that's a bit more like fleshed out next time, because I think it could generate more conversation, and I think it could lead into the debate. So I'll wait.
Yep, there will be time next week. Okay, our question period is now over, meaning that discussion on motions for the day is over. All right, with that, is there any new business at this time?
Hi, Bella. Yes. May I add new business?
Yes. Or yeah, go say it first and then I'll ask for other stuff.
It's an update on the survey.
I don't know. Okay, yeah. Can I get a seconder?
Councilor Maheshwari, I can second.
Okay, I think we have a few. All right, and then can I get hands in the chat? We need 2/3 for this, which, Anna, do you want to remind me on the numbers real quick, what we have today?
Yep, we had about, I think we should have 27 people voting in favor.
Okay. Thumbs don't count and we're one short. Wait, are you saying 27 people is 2/3?
Yeah, we were anywhere between 20, I think it was 24 plus, we were good. We were getting like 29 votes on Turning Point.
Oh, okay, then we're good then.
Yeah.
Yep, we are good to add this. Do you need to share screen or is it just a?
Nope, just verbal.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Bella. So in all transparency, because this decision has reached a national audience, the survey that we originally put out has been full of responses from people who do not go to non-students people who in their responses admit they are not out of province, they have no relation to Western, and that they are just having their own personal views. It's been, I think, several thousand responses, and I can't say majority or what, but it makes it quite difficult to use the data or use the responses. So we are looking to turn 3,409 replies. Thanks, Kimia. So we're looking to turn to counselors to better gauge their constituencies and the student body, as the survey that we originally were hoping to use has been, I was going to say tampered, but just won't work to properly represent the student body. Yep, Liam.
Is there any way to like send a link or like to the survey through the UWO email, just to like make sure that it only goes to students?
So we would have to work with the school on that one, and I just want to make sure we'll be able to do it before our Wednesday meeting. But that's definitely something we're trying to look into.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Councilor Moen.
Yeah, same effect. I would just say instead of like just sharing like a link to students, like also like linking it, like I don't know how students will feel having to like log in to use the survey. I know that you can still keep it anonymous, but I think that would be important too. Just use all the tools in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hoping to speak to the registrar's office as well to see about that process. But again, just because of the time constraints as well, we just want to make sure everything works out. And then Roshadia or Councilor Morgan or President Morgan.
Do you have, sorry, are you, sorry, brain's dead. It's literally 9:32. Would you mind taking survey from affiliates? Because King's just posted, or KCC just posted their survey. And it's more of like actually detailed questions, like targeted questions that we've asked. So we're hoping that we have a good amount of numbers to also forward to you. Yeah. I don't know if that.
Yeah, we will definitely be accepting the information that the affiliates gather.
Okay, thanks.
And then, Councilor Mauritius. Sorry if I didn't say that right.
No, you actually said it perfectly. Thank you. So since we're mainly depending on counselors speaking to their constituents, is there a way we could possibly have like a standardized little set of questions that cover both vaccine and mask points when asking to get a better view? Because I know like every counselor might like ask in a different manner. So if there's like some things we can get standardized as well as regular conversations, I feel like that might help us better gauge all the points we want to check. Would that be possible?
Yep, absolutely. If that's something you're interested in, it's definitely something we can, that would be great. Yeah, it's definitely something we can work on and share with the Slack group as soon as possible. It's a good point.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, and then Councilor Starth.
Thank you. I just want to put out there like for consideration of like the USC executive and like just in terms of like gathering information, what you would think about the feasibility of like having kind of Zoom kind of office hours to like, but specifically dedicated to like getting feedback from students on this. My thoughts, of course, that, you know, doesn't really do much for statistics, but I think in terms of students providing specific examples on like for example, from immunocompromised students on the challenges that they may face with either masking or the vaccine mandate. So I just like want to know what you think about the feasibility of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a good suggestion. I don't think I could commit to it right now, just because I don't want to speak for the other executives' capacity. But it's definitely something we will speak more about. And then any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any other new business at this time? Okay. If there's not, I would humor a motion to adjourn at this time, if anybody would like to move that.
Councillor Mohan.
Yep, and can I get a seconder?
Councillor Cohen.
Great. And are there any objections to adjourning with reconvening on August 31st, 2022 at 7 p.m. Same place. Right.
I just have a question. Sorry, no, I just have a question about like the like if we're gonna like pick it right back up from here, like if that's the order of the meeting on the 31st.
Oh, okay. I'll explain. We're gonna go back to the motions we hadn't voted on yet, where we haven't voted on the exec report and then the two gov finance, and then we're gonna go to the one we just finished.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. There was no objection, so the meeting is adjourned until the 31st. See y'all then. Please stay back if you want to see teeth, I think. I don't.
Oh, please don't. So
Bye, everybody.
I'm waiting until the recording stops.
I'll be
That's a
judging everyone to stay back.